good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are Uplifting Positive Stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be here again. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. I'm excited to get this episode recorded. We got some cool stories. There's a few in here that I've had for a while that I've just been waiting to share. So that's one thing of doing this job of like finding the content is I sit on stories that I just want to share with you for a long, long time before I can actually share it. So there's a couple stories in here that are very, very wholesome that I'm excited to share. Our topic for today is about paying it forward and
with special guest Haley Joel Osment. Just kidding, he's not here. Sorry,
no, he's not,
I just thought about that.
But yes, it's all about paying it forward and stories of people that paid it forward to somebody. And yeah, they're just very, very wholesome stories all around. So we're gonna start.
If you like this topic, watch the movie Pay It Forward with Haley Joel Osment if you've not seen it.
It is a good movie. It is a tearjerker, but it is a good movie.
Oh yeah, it is a tearjerker.
It's very, very good. The story for today from Reddit comes from the subreddit, What's the Most Wholesome Experience You've Had, from the Ask Reddit subreddit.
A frequent appearance on this podcast.
Flyer on this podcast. And this story says, I had a medical issue and was out of work for about 8 weeks. Couldn't get benefits because I was just a temp. I was beyond broke due to the medical bills. I had just enough money for gas and a bag of rice to sustain me for a week until I got my paycheck. Random Muslim dude at work notices I don't eat during any of my breaks, and on Wednesday comes up and asks if I'd like to share his meal. I said, no thanks, but thank you, as is customary to decline an offer like that at least once. He said, but I had my wife make extra just for you. I almost cried because I was so hungry. He brought meals in for me every day all the way up until the next Friday when I got paid and I could finally afford my own food. Now, I always pack extra food to work. Lunchables, prepackaged PB&Js, basically anything prepackaged and sealed that I can stuff into my lunchbox. I know I'm not going to eat everything in there. I bring them just in case I notice someone doesn't have anything to eat. So far, I've had about 20 or so people grateful I packed a little extra because they didn't have food either. Be kind to others and pay that kindness forward. So you never know just how much these little acts of kindness can restore someone's faith in humanity or their will to live.
That's so nice. Especially made it for him.
Yeah.
Not even like close friends or anything.
I know, but just
especially if the description is just random Muslim guy. Not the best way to describe somebody, I would say. But I guess like that just summarizes like they don't know each other.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that's
saw in passing at work.
It's a reflection of how well they know each other, which is not very.
Exactly. But the fact that he said, I had my wife make extra just for you.
Yeah.
Like,
that's like, oh, wait. Oh, no, I'm terrible.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
let's backpedal. Let's backpedal.
But yeah, I think that's so cool.
I'd say at that point, even if I wasn't hungry and I had like eaten a whole meal or something, I'd eat it at that point.
Yeah, right.
I heard that it was made specially from like, okay, now I have to eat this. It's like a requirement. Like
so thoughtful. It's so nice. I just love this story. And I love that the takeaway that OP had from this experience is I'm going to start packing extra food too for people. And I'm going to wait and see if there's someone that I notice isn't eating and I'm going to offer it to them. That's so, so cool. And be like, oh, I packed extra. I'm not going to eat this. You know, taking that experience that he had and then using it to forward it to other people that might need it at some point. I think that's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Our next Reddit post here is from the subreddit Faith in Humanity, and it's actually a picture of a paper that was passed around at a restaurant. Someone wrote
a newspaper or
no, a piece of printer paper with text on it with a $100 bill taped to it.
Oh, okay.
And basically, this person that posted this was a cook in a restaurant, and somebody came in and gave this to the hostess and said to give one of these to every employee, and then just left. Like, no one got to thank this person. They just handed them this piece of paper with a $100 bill taped to it. And the paper says, I need a favor from you. Will you help me? This is the favor. If you are in need this Christmas season, please take this and get something for you or a loved one that you would not normally get. If you are not in need, please give it to someone that is in need. Promise yourself that you will help someone out in any way, big or small, you don't know next Christmas. If you don't know me, forget my face. If you do know me, forget my name. And then it says, Samaritan, from the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10, verses 30 through 37, a person who is generous in helping those in distress. Thank you for being my Samaritan, and Merry Christmas. But yeah, this person asked how many people were working there, and then gave one to every single person that worked there, and didn't stick around, just bolted. Just gave it this and said pass them out to everybody and Merry Christmas, and left.
Well, that's a really kind gesture, especially because, not that it takes away from the good deed, but like they're definitely not doing it just like for the clout or the instant gratification of like, oh, thank you. They just want to do the nice deed and then get out of there, just for the act of doing the nice deed. Again, still good even if that was what they were doing, but...
Right, yeah. I thought it was super, super cool. I think it's so interesting that it gives kind of instructions in terms of if you are in need, like take it and be happy about it. And then maybe next Christmas, if you're in a better financial situation than you were, then you can do this for somebody else and pass it on. And if you don't need it this Christmas, then give it to somebody that does, and then kind of keep this trend going forward with people this year. So it's a pay it forward chain that helps somebody out during that season where maybe somebody is struggling to be able to afford gifts for people. Because that's a time of year where it's like you don't have the luxury of thinking, oh, okay, well, I'll just wait till 3 months from now, then I'll be able to save up something. If you're struggling financially to be able to get gifts for people for Christmas, there's that time period of, there's that due date kind of, oh, I have to get them a present around this time or else I failed, kind of like getting them a gift. I can't, I'll have to wait until next year, even though I wanted to get them something this year, So helping somebody in that crunch period time to be able to get through the Christmas season and have a good Christmas season with this gift, I think is a really cool gesture.
So how much money was it total then?
It doesn't say. It's just to every worker in the restaurant and $100 to each person. So
did they each get the piece of paper as
yes.
well then? Okay.
So every person got this instruction sheet with a $100 bill taped to it.
For some reason, I imagine there's just one piece of paper with money attached. And
they're all
I was a little
taped
confused
together, and they had a bunch of them, and they just went to the restaurant and were like, "How many workers you got? Here you go. Pass one out to everybody," and then left.
Okay, gotcha. For some reason, I thought that was just one piece of paper.
Yeah, no, it's really, really smart.
That makes sense.
I thought that was such an interesting thing. I don't know. And again, like this post obviously went on to Faith and Humanity as a subreddit. So people are like seeing this. It could inspire other people to do something similar if they have the means, which is super cool. It's like a pay it forward chain to start, This story kind of reminded me of my mom had a similar kind of idea that she was doing for a little bit. She basically had this idea of taking a card and putting some cash in it and just writing a very generic, like, Merry Christmas. Like, if you have the means to pay this forward down the road, like, feel free to, but I hope you are able to use this right now, like, kind of thing. And so around the holidays, she was passing them out to some people that she just thought looked like they might be happy from it. And so, like, I remember there was a guy that used to be super, super friendly at our local grocery store, and like he was the cart guy and would constantly bring out the carts and stuff, and he always looked like he was super cold because we live in Minnesota and our winters are brutal. And so this old guy that looked like he was retirement age, if not past retirement age, was doing this, and it just looked like it was miserable, and yet he was super, super friendly to us every time we passed by, and like to everybody he was just super smiley. And so my mom decided to give him one of those and just kind of like be like, Merry Christmas, and then leave. I wasn't there when she did it, but she kind of described, he looked a little confused, like, what are you handing me? What? And then she just left. So she didn't get to see the aftermath of it. But like, I just thought that was such a cool idea of being able to gift someone like something like that very anonymously. And then just, if they decide to pay it forward, great. And if not, then they got a nice gesture towards them that might help their holiday season a little bit. So I thought that was really, really cool. Our next Reddit story comes from the subreddit Faith and Humanity. It's a little bit of a shorter one, but it's a sweet one. It says...
Short but sweet.
It is titled Humane Society Angel, and it has a picture of a dog. That is captioned Annabelle, who we now call Bella. The story says, we saw Annabelle, the 10-year-old Great Dane lab mix, on the local SPCA website a while ago. Other dogs came and went, but not her. Then the day came when she was the only dog listed. They'd taken a new picture of her in front of a Christmas tree and I said, we've got to bring her home for the holidays. After a couple of meet and greets, one for humans and one for our other dog, we went ahead with the adoption. Today was the day we brought her home. When we went to pick her up, we were surprised to be told that our adoption fee had been paid for. Somebody else had seen Annabelle and thought the same thing as we did. When she called in to inquire about the dog, she was told an adoption was already in progress, and her response was to pay the fee for us. So we got a wonderful second dog to add to our household, and I got to cry in front of strangers.
Aw. That's sweet. That's a positive response to not being able to get the dog yourself,
Right, yeah. I mean, what a sweet gesture to do in that situation, because I'm sure that she was probably bummed after they made the decision that, okay, we're going to adopt this dog. We're going to go there and we're going to adopt it, and then find out it was already been adopted. So I thought that was a really sweet thing. And you hear a lot of stories of people paying for each other's meals or things like that and starting
That's a new one.
A new one. But I've never heard of someone paying for the adoption fee, especially when
No.
they had their heart set on adopting the dog. So I
Yeah.
thought that was a really cool response to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that was super sweet.
Mm-hmm. Glad that the dog meet and greet worked out okay, because that can always be a challenge sometimes when you adopt a dog. If you already have a dog, have them jive, work together,
Yeah. Another story that kind of has a similar theme of doing nice things, not only for the person, but for the animal as well. This story is from the subreddit, What's the Most Wholesome Experience You've Had? And this one says, I was the new girl in a particular restaurant and my table was a regular customer. He was dining alone. It was a slow morning. He was friendly and talkative. He was a pilot. Made sense. The airport was down the road. I had just moved to the state, and at one point he says, this is going to sound weird, but my house backs up to the dog shelter runs in Virginia City, and sometimes I get a feeling that a certain dog and person are supposed to be together. There's this big yellow dog there from the fires. There was a big fire near Carson City burning at the time. It never barks or makes noise, and it's very sweet, and I just think it's your dog. You should go check her out. I did happen to want a dog, although I hadn't planned to get one for several months at least, and being new to the area, I wasn't opposed to a little sightseeing, so I drive to the shelter in Virginia City for fun on my day off. And there was this big yellow dog. It was love at first sight. I go to fill out the paperwork for her, and the lady there starts laughing. Are you Birdie that works at the restaurant? I am. We have an angel here. He donates stuff all the time and sometimes plays matchmaker. He left a check earlier this week to cover the adoption fee if you show up looking for that dog.
Aww.
The next time I saw the customer, he tipped me $100 and said to use it for dog food.
Just more and more, it just keeps giving. Like, what the heck?
I had 14 great years with that dog. She was the absolute best. I know. Like,
why did it have to end on that note?
I know, but
What
it's
the
such
heck?
a sweet story. What a cool way to like give to people. And like, he softly was like, if you want to check it out, you can. I think this dog might be yours. And then to have it like a condition of, if this person comes in and gets this, tell them I paid for it and they're good. They don't need to pay for the adoption fee, but without pressuring them of like, I'll pay for it for you. You know what I mean? To like give that condition. I was like, wow, what a nice person. And again, it's very possible that by doing that, you never know that this person might possibly do something like that in the future for somebody. Because when you do something like of that magnitude, it can leave a huge impact on that person, especially since she got an amazing dog out of it and that she, had a good life with.
Mm-hmm.
You never know how that could inspire her to do something like that for other shelter dogs and other people down the road and stuff like that. And maybe not, but it's just such a nice gesture that is so impactful.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that anyone's done for you that you've kind of felt like paying it forward a little bit with? Not necessarily monetarily, but just like kind gestures or how they treat people or...
The first story that comes to my mind with that isn't so much something that was done for me, but it's just something that really left an impact on me because I witnessed it and was a part of that chain. And I just was so surprised at how thoughtful it was that these people started it. There was a guy that worked at our movie theater that we were working at that would come in every Friday and found out that when I started working there, that for years, workers at the movie theater had given him our dollar passes that we would get. That was something that just kind of started as like a movement, I guess, was that every time this guy would come in, one of the workers would give a dollar pass for him to be able to go see a movie for $1. It was just a bunch of high school and college kids working there. So to see that this had continued for years, that people would just do this.
I mean, it continued even when I worked there and stuff.
He was the nicest guy. He'd come in. He was a senior and stuff, so he'd always be like, oh, one senior ticket to this movie. I was like, is this the guy that we let in for $1? And they're like, yeah, he comes in every Friday. So here, I'll go grab my dollar pass and stuff. And eventually, once I saw them doing that, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll use one of my dollar passes. Okay. And it just became a thing that like the people that had been there longer would give their dollar pass. And soon you'd see the new hires would be like, no, I want to use my dollar pass for it. I'm here, so I'll just use my dollar pass. And like everyone just started doing it. It became this like chain of people doing nice things for this guy.
And he never really expected it.
No, not at all.
There definitely was an assumption that this was something that was going on, but I definitely had witnessed, and maybe even did my first time. I'm not sure. Or at least witnessed it, that someone had charged him that didn't know, and he paid it. There was no rhyme or fuss. It wasn't until after he was gone. Wait a second, did you give him a $1 pass? Like, did I give him a what? Like, oh no, we didn't tell you about Al. Like what?
Exactly. Yeah, it was always funny. But yeah, he was just super nice. And you come out of the movie, and afterwards he would come over and tell you a little bit about what his review was on the movie he saw. And he
saw every kind of movie.
It's true. Like some that were honestly terrible, and he would always be like, it was a really interesting movie. Yeah, it was interesting. You know, he always had a positive spin on it and stuff. But he was just super, super nice. And then I remember around Christmas time that year, he came in and he gave everybody a cake as like a thank you. I don't think our manager knew, like our GM knew this was happening, that everyone was using their $1 passes and giving it to him. So he was probably just like, wow, that's a really nice customer out of the blue just doing that. But like, it was just such a nice thing because our busy season was always in the winter around the holiday movies. And so we were all surprised that year with like this gigantic cake, and we were like, oh my gosh, wow, that was so nice. But yeah, I thought that was just like an amazing example of seeing how you can start a chain. And it wasn't even that like something was done nice to these people and so they were continuing it forward. It's just that people saw someone doing something nice for this guy and wanted to be a part of that. And I just thought that was such a cool example of paying it forward. That doesn't always have to be something that happened to you, but something that you saw that inspired you to want to do it too. I think that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, especially because, you know, the people who, the workers who originally started that train of helping them out were long gone.
Oh yeah, they were long gone.
Employees cycle through the movie theater pretty fast and pretty regularly. So there's definitely just a whole new generation of workers.
Just trending and just continuing on and on and on. It was just so cool. And another little side thing about that was wholesome, was that apparently this guy had been going to this movie theater for years, and it was his tradition to go with his friends to a movie, two of his friends every Friday. And unfortunately, they had passed away over the years of old age, and he proceeded to then continue to go to movies every Friday in their honor, kind of a thing, since that was their thing they would do.
Yeah, it's
so I thought that was so wholesome. I don't know if that was
none of us could tell that. He seemed super happy and cheering until one day that came out, and then I don't even think he told us about it. I think he came on the paper or something. I can't remember how the paper talked to him.
He was like a lover of movies.
But they did, and then that's how the story came out. Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Al? That's his story.
That's
why he comes? That's so tragic, but it doesn't seem tragic when he's there.
He was so upbeat and positive to everybody and stuff, and so I'm sure that's part of the reason why everybody just decided that this is the guy of all the people that we have at regulars. We're gonna continue to let him into movies for $1. You know, it was it was interesting. So it was a very, very wholesome story. Mm-hmm. Our news article for today is from Bay News 9, and it is titled "The Visual Bucket List Sends Polk County Family to Australia." The story is about a family that has a 12-year-old girl that has a condition which severely and permanently debilitates her eyesight. Ooh. Yeah. They were gifted a full all-inclusive trip to Australia by this foundation called the Visual Bucket List. Their whole mission, they are a pay-it-forward type of foundation. So what they do is they find families that have children that are either losing their eyesight or their hearing, and they try to help them fulfill a wish of that child that they'd like to see before they might permanently lose their vision or hearing, and fulfill that for them. And then the hope is that that family then will help down the road when they have the means to help another family who has a child like that be able to go on a trip like that. Mm-hmm. So it all started when one of the founders of this foundation, her daughter had been born with hearing loss, and the type of illness she had was going to potentially take her vision permanently as well. They didn't know if it would...
audio and visual.
Right. They weren't sure if it would or not, but it has like a certain percentage of possibility of doing that. And so they were concerned. Their story somehow got out there that their daughter had this, and a bunch of people came forward wanting to gift them a trip or give them money towards a trip to be able to let her go do some of these, because they had created a visual bucket list for her.
So kind of like a GoFundMe, but a little more specifically inclined.
For this kind of situation. But this little girl had lost a lot, some of her hearing, might lose her vision. And so this family that started this foundation created a visual bucket list of things they wanted her to be able to experience and see and hear before she might lose her vision. And some person came forward and was very insistent that they wanted to give them a trip. They were like, we want to bless your family with a trip somewhere and we want to pay for it. And they kept on saying, no, we don't need it. It's okay. I appreciate it. We don't need this. And they asked him 3 times and were very insistent. They're like, you have a half hour, pick a place where your family wants to go, and we're paying for you guys to go. Like, it's not an option. You're going. Mm-hmm. And so they ended up going on an amazing trip to Italy as a family.
Okay, jealous, but all right.
I know, right? Pretty awesome. So they went on a trip to Italy, and the mom was just blown away by the generosity of this person and was like, well, I didn't necessarily like need it, but that was so incredibly nice of them that I want to use the money that I would have put towards the trip like that to help another family that is in a similar situation to what we were in. And so then she started doing that for other people and tried to create this pay it forward chain, essentially.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of the whole mission of this foundation. And so they did it for this little girl, and yeah, they ended up going to Australia, and they have videos on the website that you can watch of the 12-year-old girl describing their trip to Australia and how great it was, and her dad telling stories from their trip in Australia. And yeah, it's just a super, super wholesome story. I thought that was really, really cool. I'd never heard of this foundation, so to hear about this is really, really interesting. I thought it was really neat.
Mm-hmm. I guess it makes sense. I mean, I guess if you do have children that are losing their vision or hearing, I wonder what the trips would look like for kids who are just losing their hearing. Like what kind of experiences they would try to go on for that specifically.
Yeah, right. Maybe like to some kind of concert or something like that the kid really likes at the time or something like that. You never know. I don't know. But yeah, I guess like for the girl and the family, the founder's family of this foundation was really huge into art. And so that was one of the reasons they wanted to go to Italy. It was because she wanted to go to the art museums and stuff and see all that in case she was going to lose her vision. And they also said that they went to the Vatican and had the Pope bless her eyes and ears and stuff like that. And that was like a huge thing for them. So they did that. I guess it's worked out for her. She's much older now, their daughter, and she has perfect vision. So she didn't end up losing her vision. It's always a possibility with this thing that it could, but as of right now, she hasn't lost her vision. It's been several years.
Well, that's fortunate.
Yeah, so that's a really positive out of it too. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. The next story here, the next article is from abc7.com, and it is a story out of Los Angeles. The title of it is Chef Wife Deliver Hot Meals to SoCal Homeless Community with Homemade Thursdays Program.
Okay.
It's about a local chef known as the Moroccan Chef.
The Moroccan Chef.
Yeah, he's been a chef for 25 years and has had huge clientele, including he served the White House.
Oh, wow.
So one of his higher profile customers that he has served is former First Lady Michelle Obama. And yeah, so he's got a pretty big name for himself now, it sounds like. But what he does is him and his wife every Thursday do homemade Thursdays. So instead of serving their clientele, they reserve Thursdays to give hundreds of meals to give to their homeless community in Los Angeles.
That's got to take a lot of time and resources.
Right? I guess if he's like made a big name for himself and it's getting like high clientele and stuff like that, to be able to have the means to do something like this, I thought that was so cool. To quote the article, it says the chef is of North African descent and got his start as a dishwasher in Italy. After years of hard work, he became a chef in New York City and Los Angeles. He even served the White House a few years ago. He definitely is trying to start a movement, I guess, in a way, in terms of taking his Thursdays and taking all the food that they have and, their time. And instead of trying to make more money on those Thursdays, using it to help the homeless population in Los Angeles to have warm cooked meals that are obviously going to be probably really good considering he's a high-end chef. Just a good example of doing something and not expecting anything from it. And you never know what kind of positivity that can cause in those people's lives and how demonstrating that selflessness, how that could affect the people that he's helping.
It's also, I feel like, a reflection of almost kind of gratitude a little bit because like, he probably recognizes his success, and like the fortune that he has of the success he's found and is able to give back and pay it forward that way. And sure, yeah, I'm sure it does bring some positive press and probably helps the business a little bit, but it's not like it's directly making money. Like he probably could be making more money directly if he wasn't doing that every Thursday.
Exactly, yeah.
And probably saving a lot of money on resources and such, and time. Time is a big, for a lot of people, that's almost more valuable than money, is giving up your time.
Right,
And
he could have that be his day off, and instead he's using that day off. And what a cool thing that he's doing it with his wife, too. So they're doing it together on what could be their day off to better the community. I think that's awesome. With all of that, we will end today's episode. Tune in next week on Wednesday for the next episode drop. If you have any positive stories that you would like to share that we could put on this podcast, please feel free to send them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com or by joining our Facebook group, Uplifting Positive Stories. They do not need to be huge stories. They can be big or small. We just would love to have them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next week.
stay positive.